my conclusion is very simple. He is losing that war, both in the military sense in the territory of Ukraine and also in economical sense back in Russia against very tough Western sanctions.
What is the point of sanctions? Are they to force Mr. Putin to the negotiating table, to punish Russia for starting the war, or are they designed to perhaps bankrupt Mr. Putin's war machine?
Well, I would say the last point is perhaps most, precise. Really, it's the way in which the West can stop this, war machine. Really, first of all, sending very clear message that if the war will continue and if Putin or his, surrounding are imagining that they will be able to occupy, new territories in Ukraine, that they will fail because those sanctions will stay. And the sanctions are, even without, embargo on oil and gas, are very painful. I hope that, all the West also will introduce sanctions on import of gas and oil, and that will be, additional blow to Russian economy. And that is how, we hope that, in Russia, in Russian authorities, in Kremlin, they will start to understand that they do not have money even to continue the war.
Do these sanctions go far enough?
Well, I would, I called in European Parliament, to sign the common letter of members of our own parliament. We collected more than, 100 signatures, which is quite a lot according to European Parliament traditions during a few days, where we called, full embargo on oil and gas, to stop imports of oil and gas from Russia into European Union, because the numbers which we see now, which are published by different think tanks, including Bruegel think tank, are really raising very big moral question. Each day, the European Union is paying into the pockets of Putin somewhere around of 600 million euros per day for oil and gas, mainly for oil. And if, as we asked, some experts on Russian military technologies, and we asked a very simple question, how much one new tank, what is the cost of new tank? The cost is around 1.5 million. So it means that we are paying, per day for 400 new tanks to be, acquired by Putin, And when we see that during the war, during 2 weeks of the war, brave Ukrainian soldiers managed to destroy, somewhere around of 390 tanks, and we are per one day paying more than they managed to destroy during 2 weeks. I think that we cannot continue with, paying into the pocket of Putin, in such a way anymore. So that's what we need to introduce.
Has this invasion of Ukraine led to a rethink about European energy policy? Not just at EU level, but for the UK and all the other countries in the region?
Definitely, energy is a topic which we are discussing very much. And, I said why we need to, stop import of gas and oil immediately. From another side, definitely we need to look into the strategies how to become, independent from Russian gas and oil supplies, looking into a longer-term future, which, there are some plans recently announced by Commission. And in addition to that, of course, what was decided by European Union and by Commission, by Parliament, by the Council during the last years to implement so-called Green Deal, in the fight against climate change, that becomes, really even more needed to be implemented as soon as possible, because that will definitely will make, Europe totally independent from gas and oil, and our energy production will be based much more on alternative, energy production.
Well, that leads to the question, did Europe become too reliant on Russian gas and oil?
Well, that's for sure. It's no doubt, in gas, we are buying now, the whole Europe was buying around of 42% of gas was imported from Russia. In Germany, the numbers even are higher, around of 54%. And definitely our, I would say, illusion that having such kind of trade relations with Russia, it will make also Russia to be more, adaptive to European type of behavior. Those illusions are gone, and definitely, Putin used those.
Where should Europe look for their energy now? Then, where should it come from?
Well, first of all, of course, there are some reserves which were, of gas, which we're keeping in our storages. And so, as at least what the European Commission have said, Ursula von der Leyen recently have said that, they made a quick research on situation. And the answer is that even if Putin will stop gas deliveries to Europe because of the war which he started, even then, for this season, we are on the safe side. I mean, the reserves are enough. There is we should not fear that, European economy will be stopped because of that. Of course, the prices can rise up.
It's certainly going to damage it tremendously, not least inflation, isn't it? And Nord Stream 2 was the big hope for Germany. Now Germany is talking about putting net zero perhaps on the back burner, and they're building LNG terminals.
Yes, that is one way what we can do in Europe, really to build LNG terminals in order to get, access to global, shale gas market. That's one thing. Second, of course, implementation of Green Deal and diminishing, the need of gas also is very much needed. So I don't see why we should not implement immediately, embargo on oil and gas in such a way, stopping, first of all, the war.
How do they feel in Lithuania?
Well, of course, we are. First of all, we are very much, in solidarity with Ukrainian people and Ukrainian soldiers. We are delivering them weapons. Second, we are, improving our defense capabilities, and NATO is sending, more and more troops into Lithuania, into the Baltic states. So we are ready for whatever, developments. But I do not see how Putin can win that war, because now he's losing the war in Ukraine. Now, Europe and the West is coming with much more support.
Do you feel that Mr. Putin understandably felt threatened because he had NATO so close to his borders? Is there a case for saying NATO should not have been so forceful?
Well, it's total wrong, language which Putin was trying to use in order to, in some way, to argue why he needed to go to the war. Because, first of all, NATO is a defense organization. NATO is not threatening anybody. Ukraine is not a member of NATO. And, to demand that Ukraine should not improve their defense capabilities, when Putin went and occupied Crimea back in 2014, it's something, totally difficult to understand.
Do you see Ukraine being allowed quite quickly into the EU and NATO?
Well, first of all, about EU, I would like to see that things would move very rapidly. There is formal application from President Zelensky, where he asked to start, membership procedures for Ukraine to become member of EU. So I hope that candidate status will be given quite soon, with a positive evaluation from Commission. On NATO, well, first of all, formally, Ukraine did not ask for such kind of membership. Ukrainian government and Ukrainian political elite, they understand reality that perhaps in the nearest future, NATO will not open the doors for Ukraine, but Ukrainians are looking, and President Zelensky, he spoke very clearly that they want, real security guarantees from, the countries which can give such guarantees. Unfortunately, the guarantees which were given back in 1994 in so-called Budapest Memorandum, which was signed by Russia and by Americans and Great Britain and some other countries, they were unfortunately not real guarantees. So definitely for Ukraine, there is a need of real guarantees, security guarantees, and of course, possibility to develop their own security infrastructure. And I would say in a very clear way that Ukrainians have shown that they are really, the strongest European nations. They are fighting for European values in such a way which is incredible, and they have the strongest military forces on European democratic continent. And that is why I would say that both EU and NATO would be strengthened if Ukraine would join those organizations.
Andrius Kubilius, a member of the European Parliament, former Prime Minister of Lithuania, many thanks for joining us on The Agenda.
Thanks a lot.